Hello and welcome to Pink Paradox Reads. I'm Lisa, aka Pink Paradox. I read books, I watch horror movies, and I unbox stuff that has to do with books and horror movies. In this video, I'll be talking about Christmas horror books and ghost stories. Let's get into it. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Seriously, when we reach the end of November, my brain just goes, and you wouldn't think my favorite holiday would go so well with my favorite genre, but it turns out that Christmas and horror go hand in hand. Comfort and joy juxtaposed with fear and terror may not sound like the most natural of combinations, but I think the plethora of Christmas horror that's out there would beg to differ, and everyone among us who loves this specific subgenre would agree. There is a whole bunch of Christmas horror movies out there, but I feel like Christmas horror in books and literary fiction is not quite as well spread and well known, but I've got two novels this time around, a novella and a whole bunch of short story collections to delve into, and I'm starting off with a reread. First up, I want to talk about A Secret Santa by Andrew Schaffer. This came out last year and I read it then. It wasn't quite as taken with it back then as I hoped I would be, because this cover really took me in. It's super festive, got sort of Gremlins vibes here, and the premise really drew me in, but I remember I felt that the execution was not quite what I'd hoped for. When I reread this time around, I felt like I appreciated it a lot more. We are in New York in 1986, and Lucy has just lost her job at a publishing company that has been bought up by this huge conglomerate company. The company she used to work at was all about horror fiction, because in 1986, horror fiction had a really big following. It was really the big horror boom. She is down on her luck and she is just trying out any publishing house that has jobs available. And she ends up at Blackwood Patterson, which is a more of a literary publishing house that is not known for publishing horror fiction, but it's pretty much her last resort. She meets up with the founder and boss of the publishing house, Blackwood Patterson, and while she's there in his office, she recognizes something he's got there. Lucy is from a German family, and Xavier Blackwood has this doll in his office, this Parscht, flawless German pronunciation, which is this little doll that is supposed to protect you from evil, apparently. As fate would have it, Xavier Blackwood, founder of Blackwood Patterson Publishing, dies of a heart attack whilst there on the interview with Lucy, and she just kind of gets the job by default. This takes place right before Christmas, and Lucy finds herself partaking in a office Secret Santa exchange. Even though she is so new that she doesn't have a gift to bring, she gets a Secret Santa gift, and when she opens it, it turns out to be the Parscht from Xavier Blackwood's office. Who on earth has given it to her, and why? Pretty soon after, mysterious and often deadly accidents start to happen to her new co-workers, and she is suspecting that it has all to do with her Secret Santa gift. Alongside her former author, Fabian Nightingale, she has to get to the bottom of finding out what the hell is going on with their Secret Santa gift and why are people dropping dead around her. So the main problem I had with Secret Santa when I first read it was that books like this have to be quite plot driven to work. Like you can see, it's a very short book, and I felt like the plot really lagged at a lot of times. It's also a lot more about publishing than it is about Christmas and horror. But like I said, the second time I read it, I found myself enjoying it a lot more. I think maybe because my expectations were not as high as when I first read it. I gave Secret Santa 3 candy canes out of 5. Then we got Sherlock Holmes and the Christmas Demon by James Lovegrove. These are new stories about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson written by James Lovegrove, and they are period settings, not modern day settings like the BBC TV show. We meet Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson at the beginning when they're on the trail of a thieving Santa. So it's very, very Christmassy from the start. And as they wrap up that case, they meet Eve, who is a young woman from Yorkshire who is set to inherit this huge fortune from her deceased aunt. The only thing is that she has to be deemed like mentally sound before she receives this inheritance on her 21st birthday, which happens to be Christmas Eve. Now, Eve comes to Sherlock Holmes because she thinks that someone is messing with her and trying to make her appear mentally unstable. She is receiving these gifts in her house, these little birch branch thingies, which are the calling card of the Black Thurrock, which is sort of like the Yorkshire version of Krampus or the Belschnickel. Eve invites Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson to come stay with her at her mansion, her family's mansion, and find out just what the hell is going on and if someone is really trying to mess up her big inheritance. Now, I hesitate to use the word cozy about this book because I know that cozy mystery is its own sort of genre, and it doesn't really apply to this book in that sense, but darn it, it is super cozy and it's super Christmassy. There are Christmas parties, there's Christmas food, there's frozen lakes, there's Christmas horror legends. Absolutely awesome. This book was a real delight. I highly recommend it, especially if you got a cozy blanket and a hot beverage of choice to go along with it. I gave Sherlock Holmes and the Christmas Demon 4 candy canes out of 5. Also, look at this artwork. I love the spine here. Super Christmassy. Love it. One book I haven't had the chance to read yet, but I wanted to just show off anyway. Stephanie from Books in the Freezer featured this on her TikTok. I didn't even know there was a book version of Anna and the Apocalypse, but I am saving this one to read during Christmas weekend. And I am featuring Anna and the Apocalypse, the movie, in my upcoming Ho 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 Horror for the Holidays movie edition coming up next time. A Christmas horror novella that I recently read was The Visitor by Sergio Gomez. And again, look at this artwork. I love the super Christmassy feel with the alien and the Christmas tree there. The Visitor is a short, sharp Christmas horror novella featuring a diverse bunch of characters who are trapped in a diner during a snowstorm. And there is something otherworldly and gruesome out there to hunt them. The Visitor was a lot of fun. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of blood, there's a dog. A very quick and fun read if you are looking for something Christmassy horror-y to read during the holidays. I gave The Visitor 3 candy canes out of 5. I've also recently read tons of Christmas horror short story collections this time around, and another reread was Hark, the Herald Angels Scream, edited by Christopher Golden, and this is from Blumhouse Books. This is pretty much my favorite of everything I'm mentioning in this video. I absolutely loved Hark, the Herald Angels Scream the first time I read it, and I love it still. I think this might be like a book that I'll be reading every holiday season from now on. One of my complaints with Christmas horror collections is that a lot of the times the stories just aren't very Christmassy. That is definitely not the case here. There are so many subgenres featured in this book. We've got sort of home invasion, scary strangers vibes. We've got cutesy the Gremlins vibes. We got tech gone wrong and sort of a Black Mirror type vibes. all wrapped up in tons of tinsel and gift wrap, and it's just, oh, I absolutely love it. I pretty much love every single story in this book, but there are some standouts that I would like to mention. Absinthe and Angels by Kelly Armstrong has that sort of The Strangers meets supernatural Christmas vibes. Christmas in Barcelona by Scott Smith, who wrote The Ruins. I remember the first time I read it, and also the second time I read it, I started off thinking, oh, this is just like literary fiction. There's like nothing really happening, but it packs quite a punch at the end. So if you're like me and you feel like you don't like this sort of literary horror fiction deal, just stick with it. It has a real payoff. Love Me by Thomas E. Snigoski has a very gremlin-y but a lot more sinister feel going on. I really love that. Not Just for Christmas by Sarah Lotz are about these engineered pets that look exactly just like real pets, but they are sort of robots. And you know, with tech like that and horror, something usually goes very, very wrong, and that is also the case here. Tenets by Josh Mallerman. I remember not really liking that one the first time I read it, but it had a lot more of an impact on me when I read it this time. The Second Floor of the Christmas Hotel by Joe R. Lansdale. I felt like this one had Peter Straube ghost story vibes to it. I'm saying vibes a lot, I'm sorry. Farrow Street by Elizabeth Hand made me miss England a lot. Yankee Swap by John McIlveen was kind of like a Saw meets the Danish movie Finale meets Christmas at the Office kind of deal. That one is a lot of fun. Yeah, just pretty much every single story, like I said, in this collection is a great Christmassy horror tale. I cannot recommend Hark, the Herald Angel Scream enough. If you love Christmas horror, pick it up. The 12 Frights of Christmas is a book that I've been looking forward to reading. This book is currently out of print, I believe. This copy is from 1986 and I bought it online used. It is edited by Isaac Asimov, Charles C. Vaugh, and Martin Harry Greenberg, and it has an introduction by Isaac Asimov. Now, unfortunately, as much as I was looking forward to this book, I guess maybe I was looking a little bit too much forward to it. It was a bit of a disappointment. Again, like I said before, this is a type of collection where the Christmassy element doesn't really come into play in all or even most of the stories. Also, a lot of the stories in here are science fiction. I guess the inclusion of Isaac Asimov and also Arthur C. Clarke would give that away, but when a book is called The 12 Frights of Christmas, I was really thinking that this was going to be horror all the way through. That said, there are some fantastic tales in here, including The Chimney by Ramsey Campbell, which I have read before, but it is a perfect inclusion in a collection like this. This is also one of Grady Hendrix's favorite Christmas stories, I've heard. The Night Before Christmas by Robert Bloch is also fantastic. It is more of a crime tale than pure horror. I was sort of, when I was reading it, I was sort of thinking, yeah, I'm not so sure about this. But then the ending happened, and Jiminy Cricket, the ending makes the entire story so good. The Festival by H.P. Lovecraft is also in here, and the Festival was actually in, I think, 3 of the Christmas collections that I read this time around. It just goes to show that there isn't that many Christmassy horror stories to go around. I have not read much H.P. Lovecraft before. I was amazed at the amount of negative-laden words he could put into a story. It was almost kind of funny. It's like abominable this and horrible that and unmentionable this and gruesome that. It is about a young man who goes to a fishing town to celebrate the festival of his people. a festival that is way older than the Christmas that we celebrate today. I thought this one was really interesting. I should read more H.P. Lovecraft. I do struggle a little bit with the language, but I thought the festival was really good and one of the standouts in this collection. I also really liked Life Sentence by James McConnell. That takes place on New Year's Eve, so not very Christmassy. It's also very science fiction-y, but I thought it was very impactful, really packed a punch. That was also one of my favorites. And the 12 Frights of Christmas, which, like I said, did not quite live up to the expectations, so I gave it 3 candy canes out of 5. Another short story collection that I read was Ghosts of Christmas Past, edited by Tim Martin, and it is a little bit disappointing when you've got Neil Gaiman at top billing in your short story collection, and it turns out that his contribution is a poem. Nicholas is a poem that has also been featured in several other collections, including some of Neil Gaiman's own. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed about that, but there were some other really great stories in this collection. I really liked the Kelly Link story that is called The Lady and the Fox, and I felt like that brought some of that magical realism that we normally get in Neil Gaiman stories, so that sort of made up for the fact that we only got a poem from Neil Gaiman. I do have a story collection by Kelly Link that I have had for a very long time, and I haven't had the chance to read it yet, but after reading The Lady and the Fox, that sort of whetted my appetite for reading more by Kelly Link. Jen Ashworth's Dinner for One was also a standout in this collection for me, and Louis de Bernier's This Beautiful House. There were a lot of those sort of traditional Victorian Christmas stories in this collection, the kind that has been traditionally told on Christmas Eve for many centuries. My main problem with Ghosts of Christmas Past is that there wasn't a lot of information on the stories and the authors. I would love to have known when these stories were originally published, because I had a bit of a hard time placing them time-wise. It really was a little bit all over the place. So I did end up giving Ghosts of Christmas Past 3 out of 5 candy canes. Lastly, Chill Tidings, Dark Tales of the Christmas Season, edited by Tanya Kirk, was the final collection that I read of Christmas horror stories. This comes from the series British Library Tales of the Weird, and it has another one of those fantastic covers. I absolutely love the wreath covered in maggots there. Very festive. And Chill Tidings gives me what I wanted from the previous collection. It has a lot more information on the stories and the authors. There's like a little mini bio of each author before each story, and it also tells you when it was originally published. In the introduction, it says, the tradition of telling ghost stories on Christmas Eve was firmly established by the Victorian period. Its origins are in the early Christian belief that souls in purgatory were most active on the day before Holy Day, and thus more likely to intrude into our world. The Festival by H.P. Lovecraft also featured in Chill Tidings. Someone in the Lift by L.P. Hartley was also a story that made its way into more than one collection. That is another story that really packs a super punch. It comes off very quiet and unassuming at first, and then it just hits you with that ending. Very emotional. I also really enjoyed Old Applejoy's Ghost by Frank R. Stockton. This is more of a not very scary tale, more of, like they said in the introduction, tale of ghosts coming into our world around Christmas time, because that's what they do. So another 3 candy canes to Chill Tidings. I also listened to one of the most famous Christmas horror or ghost stories of all time. That is, of course, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And Audible has a narration of that for their premium members that is read by Hugh Grant, and I felt like he did a fabulous job with the narration. He didn't sound very Hugh Granty at all. I don't know how many times I've read A Christmas Carol, but I keep forgetting that it's actually quite scary. Jacob Marley's ghost, the way he appears is really quite scary. And also, after Scrooge has been visited by Marley, he looks out at the streets of London and there are like dozens of spirits roaming the streets. That's a really scary scene. You've probably already read A Christmas Carol or seen some sort of a movie adaptation of it by now, but if you do have Audible Premium, I highly recommend you check out the Hugh Grant narration. I gave A Christmas Carol, what else could I give it? 5 candy canes out of 5. So there you have a rundown of all the Christmas horror and ghost stories that I've been reading recently. I'm sure there is plenty of Christmas horror books out there that I don't know about. I would love it if you mention them in the comments. Also, please tell me what your favorite is. That's it for this video. I'll be back very soon with another ho 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 horror for the holidays. This time all about Christmas horror movies. And if you enjoy horror movie talk, bookish videos like this one, and unboxings, I would love it if you stuck around and subscribed for more. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're having a wonderful pre-Christmas time, and I hope to see you again next time.